Here is the number most Australians never check, and it completely changes how they should think about retirement. The median super balance across every Australian with a super account is just $60,037. Not for young people, not for people starting out, for everyone. So if your balance is above that right now, yes, you are ahead of the median Australian. But here is the trap. Being ahead of the median is not the same as being genuinely on track, because most Australians are comparing themselves to the wrong benchmark, a vague $1 million rule, a generic calculator, or what they assume everyone else has. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 signs your retirement portfolio is genuinely ahead of most Australians, using real 2026 data, not rules of thumb. And by the end, you will know whether you are actually ahead or just ahead of the wrong comparison. Stay with me for sign 5, because that is the one that separates a portfolio that is ahead by accident from one that is ahead by design. It comes down to one number on the Services Australia website that most Australians approaching retirement have never looked up, even though it can directly determine how much government income lands in their account every fortnight for years. Every major figure in this video comes from one of 3 places: the ATO's taxation statistics, ASFA's retirement standard, February 2026 update, and APRA's superannuation statistics. So these are not guesses, not internet myths, not "this should probably be enough." This is what Australians actually have, and what retirement actually costs. Sign 1. Your balance clearly beats the median for your age group, and you have actually checked it. Because this is where most people get distorted. The first useful question is not, do I have enough? It is, where do I sit compared with people my age? The ATO data shows the median at age 40 is around $80,000. At 50, roughly $165,000 to $200,000. At 55 to 59, about $207,000. And at 60 to 64, right before retirement, somewhere between $160,000 and $250,000. That is the reality. Even the 75th percentile for Australians aged 55 to 64 is about $310,000, still well below ASFA's comfortable single retirement target of $630,000. So if you are 45 with $200,000 in super, you are meaningfully ahead of the median. If you are 50 with $300,000, you are doing better than a very large share of your peers. That does not mean relax. It means stop benchmarking yourself against panic. Log into MyGov this week, check your super balance, and compare it with the median for your age band. That is your real starting point. Sign 1 is about where you stand. Sign 2 is about one decision that can change the result by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sign 2. You have actively chosen your investment option instead of leaving it on autopilot. Finder's 2026 data says 58% of Australians are still with the super fund their employer originally chose for them. That means most people are still running on a default setting. The same data says only 12% of Australians make additional contributions to reduce taxable income. So if you have reviewed your investment option, your fees, and your contribution strategy, you are already in a genuine minority. And this matters. A growth option averaging 7.5% a year versus a conservative option averaging 5.5% on a $100,000 balance over 25 years is the difference between $609,000 and $376,000. That is a $233,000 gap from one menu choice inside your super account. Now, the point is not that growth is always right. The point is that your option should be deliberate. Too defensive at 35 can cost you decades of compounding. Too aggressive at 62 can expose you to serious sequence risk right before drawdown. Sign 3. You have investment assets outside super. Not just your home, Not just cash, actual investable assets you can access before preservation age. This is a massive separator. Because most Australians build wealth in two places only, super and the family home. The problem is, both are hard to use before 60. So if you want flexibility, reduced work hours, early retirement, or a buffer before super access, you need a bridge portfolio outside the system. That could be ETFs, dividend shares, or a managed fund in a normal brokerage account. Even a modest amount matters. Not because the number itself is huge, but because the structure changes your options. Most people never build that structure. Sign 4. You understand sustainable drawdown. Because building a portfolio is only half the game. If you pull from it badly, you can still end up in trouble. The 4% rule is the most widely stress-tested withdrawal framework in retirement planning. At a 4% withdrawal rate, $500,000 gives you about $20,000 a year. At 7%, that same portfolio can feel comfortable early, but the risk of running it down rises sharply, especially if markets fall at the wrong time. That is sequence of returns risk. A bad market in the first few years of retirement can do lasting damage if you are withdrawing too much at the same time. One practical defense is a 2 to 3 year cash buffer, so you are not forced to sell growth assets in a downturn. Take your projected retirement balance and divide it by 25. That gives you a rough 4% annual income number. Then ask yourself, does that actually support the lifestyle I want? Sign 5. You have factored the age pension into your plan instead of treating it like an afterthought. This is where portfolios ahead by accident get separated from portfolios ahead by design. Because the age pension is not just a fallback for people who failed to save enough. It is a built-in part of Australia's retirement income system. And whether you qualify and how much you receive depends heavily on your assets at 67. From 1st of July 2026, the Services Australia Assets Test cuts off part pension for a single homeowner at $733,500 and for a homeowner couple combined at $1,102,500. The family home is exempt. Full age pension is $31,223 for singles and $47,070 combined for couples. That means many Australian homeowners with $400,000 to $800,000 in super may qualify for at least some pension, and most have never run the numbers. Here is why that matters. Your drawdown rate from 60 to 67 changes your balance at 67. Your balance at 67 changes your pension entitlement. And that pension entitlement changes your lifetime retirement income. That is not a small detail. That is system design. Here is the hard truth. Most Australians nearing retirement still have far less super than people assume. Most never chose their investment option. Most have no bridge portfolio outside super. Most have never modelled a sustainable drawdown rate. And most have never checked the pension thresholds that may support them for decades. That is not a personal failure. It is what happens when a system defaults people in, goes quiet, and leaves them to figure out the rest alone. But the good news is this. Every sign in this video is checkable. Tonight, for free, your balance, your investment option, your non-super assets, your drawdown rate, your pension thresholds. And once you check those, you are already ahead of the people who never look. Use the ATO's Your Super Comparison tool this week. If your fund is weak on long-term net returns after fees, you now have a specific reason to review it. So let's bookend this. The median Australian super balance across the entire population is $60,037. If you are above that, you are ahead of the median. But now you know what being genuinely ahead actually looks like. Not luck, not vibes, not a round number target. A framework, 5 signs, real 2026 data, and every one of them is verifiable. If this helped you see where you actually stand, hit like, subscribe, and send it to someone who keeps saying their super is probably fine without ever checking it. Because probably fine is not a retirement strategy.